You join me here in Excitement City because I have heard the lead single from the new Judas Priest album, Invincible Shield. I'm going to give you my thoughts on that and also give you the full lowdown on everything we know about the new Priest record. Thing we know, number one. Thanks to the band's performance at the Power Trip Festival in California over the weekend, we know that the new Priest album is going to be called Invincible Shield. How do we feel about that? I love it. When I heard about this title, I actually said, wow, and laughed in a really good way. I love the word invincible, so combine invincible with another strong word like shield. That's a pretty metal combination, isn't it? Great work, Priest. Now then, let's have a look at the album cover. I've seen a few kind of conflicting reactions from fans on this. Personally, I think it's great. I love the colours. It's like a molten metal overload, isn't it? Exactly what you expect from Priest. I can see how maybe for some fans the cover might not be complicated enough. Some classic Priest album covers have quite a lot going on, don't they? Like the Screaming for Vengeance and Defenders of the Faith album covers, whereas this one is just like one shield. But, you know, British Steel was one razor blade, essentially, and I think it's nice to have a very simple, straightforward image there. Although it's not that straightforward because it seems that there are two different versions of the cover. I'm not sure what the story is there. Two shields, molten metal, and a bit different. So, I don't know. Maybe it could be a packaging ploy to make people buy more of the formats, and there are lots of those, as we'll get to later. But either way, I really like this cover, and I'd like to hear what you think down in comments. Invincible Shield will be the band's 19th studio album, and their last one came out 5 years ago. That's kind of hard to believe. The mighty Firepower. Now, I think this album was pretty well received, and I certainly loved it. I absolutely loved it. I gave it a really good review for Planet Rock magazine, RIP Planet Rock magazine, and I still regard it as kind of a tentpole Judas Priest record alongside British Steel, Screaming, Defenders, Painkiller, all the greats. So yeah, Invincible Shield has quite a lot to live up to because this record was full of great songs. Necromancer, Lightning Strike, Traitor's Gate for me is a solid gold Priest classic, as is No Surrender. The fourth thing we know about the new record is that it's once again being produced by Andy Sneap, who handled Firepower and is also, of course, in the band. Yeah, and Andy gave Firepower an amazing production, I think. Really clear, chunky, just everything you really want from a modern Judas Priest record. And so I have no doubt that this new record, well, in fact, I know from having heard Panic Attack, that this new record is going to sound every bit as strong and as clear as a bell. And of course, as heavy as hell. They should put that on the cover. Clear as a bell, heavy as hell. The fifth thing may be something that you didn't already know, but will know now, because I can tell you, having heard Panic Attack. If you've seen the album trailer, the fantastic kind of album teaser that shows us the album cover and the album title, there's music overlaid onto that sounds like some kind of epic intro in the very vague realms of the Hellion, doesn't it? Well, I can tell you that that music is the start of the song Panic Attack. We're now halfway through the 10 things I'm telling you about the album, and we'll get to Panic Attack shortly, so this might be a great time to subscribe to the channel for more metal entertainment, information, and memories from an aging metal journo. Now, the next thing to tell you is that there's been no official track listing released for the album yet, apart from, of course, the song Panic Attack. But fans are having a great time trying to decipher some of the blurred out titles on the pack shots of the album. Now, I'm not going to join in on this too much, but I will say that one of the titles looks a bit to me like Judas Priest and the great late horror director Lucio Fulci may finally have something in common in terms of titles. I may be wrong, I don't know, I genuinely don't know. I tell you what, if you join my Possessed by Metal mailing list, I'll email you when I can tell you officially the full track listing, and I'll also give you my reaction to each track title, because I love track titles, don't you? The track listing of an album is probably the most exciting part, even more exciting than the cover for me. Now, ever since around February of this year, the band have been talking about the album and the album's sound and style and direction in the press in kind of vague terms, and sometimes they've regretted having done so. The legendary Rob Halford, for instance, described the album as progressive in one interview and then really wished he hadn't. He told Sirius FM, "I think we've used the word progressive and everyone thinks it's going to become our album Nostradamus or Rush, which is two different things. I've definitely used the word progressive to describe the new Priest album in previous interviews purely because it's got a few musical turnarounds that Firepower doesn't have. But that doesn't make it a Rush record." Also in that same interview, Rob said, "There's a tremendous amount of belief and love and thought and power and riffs and crazy drums and screams. Man is just roaring again. But it's also got those familiar elements of some of the previous material. That's not to say we're doing Firepower Mark II, we're not." So that's good, isn't it? It's great to hear that Priest are not afraid still to experiment, even after all these decades of absolute metal majesty. So here's thing number 8. You might have been wondering the extent to which guitarist Glenn Tipton will be involved with Invincible Shield. Has he written for the record? Has he played on it? It does seem that both of those things are true, which is great news. Now, Glenn, of course, a good few years ago was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease, which has kind of forced him, very sadly, to take a step back from the band, certainly in the live arena. But that doesn't mean he can't contribute to the records, and that does very happily seem to be the case with Invincible Shield. Speaking to Sirius FM back in February, guitarist Richie Faulkner said, "I don't think Glenn's recorded his guitar parts yet, but he's definitely involved in the writing of it. Obviously, we're all aware of his challenges with Parkinson's, so we were adamant that if he couldn't play that particular day, that he was involved in the writing. He would share his ideas through me." That sounds a little bit like Richie has been standing in for Glenn as necessary. And I just think the wonderful thing is that it's still, it's 3 guitarists. Glenn is still very much there in the writing and recording process as much as he's able. And I think that's as much as we Priest fans can really ask for. Thing number 9 about Invincible Shield is that it's available in just no end of formats, just as we fans want and demand and deserve. As I said earlier, there's 2 different covers across 2 different vinyl editions, which is very interesting. There's a CD version, there's a cassette version. I love a few cassettes, as viewers of this channel might well know. There's also an exclusive 7-inch single, which includes the 3 bonus tracks, which are also on the CD. And that's also a thing in itself. This is a bonus thing, if you like. The fact that there are 3 bonus tracks kind of suggests to me that the band's creative flow was really good on this one. If they have 3 bonus tracks, then I think that's a pretty good sign. Superfans will want to splash out, by the way, on the Mega Bundle, which just has everything in it and costs about £130. I'd certainly like to unbox that lot on this channel. Oh, and you'll find pre-order links down below in the video description. The 10th thing to tell you about this album is the release date. It's out on March the 8th, 2024. And yes, that feels like far too long away, doesn't it? But I'm sure we're going to get the odd single between now and then, starting, of course, with Panic Attack. So, what do I think of Panic Attack? It's great. I love it. Thank God, thank God. Being a really big fan of a band is really weird, isn't it? Because there's that fear in the back of your mind. What if they've suddenly gone mad and they've started making, Hungarian clog dancing music? No, that's not the case with Priest. I can exclusively confirm that I have not started making Hungarian clog dancing music. Panic Attack is every bit the intense lead single that you want from Judas Priest. It's very much metal, and as I suggested earlier, the production is just first class again. To my mind, just purely talking about Panic Attack, the production is very much the same as Firepower, and I think Firepower's production was great. It's as clear as a bell, heavy as hell, and the guitars have those really crunchy layers to them. The guitars have real heft. Very, very broadly speaking, I would describe this song as the love child of the title tracks of the Firepower and Painkiller records. Let me explain what I mean by that. When I say that Panic Attack reminds me somewhat of the song Firepower, I mean in terms of the general kind of melodic approach. And also the production, I guess. The production reminds me of that. Panic Attack reminds me of Painkiller in terms of the pretty relentless approach. After that intro that I mentioned earlier, the track takes off like a rocket, and it's just such a joy to hear. I wouldn't go expecting Panic Attack to be as intense as Painkiller, and that's why I kind of feel that the song exists in the realm somewhere between Firepower and Painkiller. In the middle, you have a Panic Attack. There's a lovely preponderance of guitar solos, which also reminds me of Painkiller, especially in the way that there's one guitar solo that comes in at the end when you kind of think the song is about to finish. You get another one. We launch again. There's a lovely bit of twin guitar work somewhere around the middle, and also just gloriously golden guitar solos. Just the exact sort of world-class standard that you've come to expect from Priest. They've got Richie Faulkner and Andy Sneap, and who knows, maybe Glenn Tipton is playing at least one of the solos there. I have no idea. Well, I guess we'll find out at some point. Panic Attack makes great use of a kind of an air raid siren effect that maybe is a guitar synthesizer. I'm not entirely sure, but it just sounds great, and it's very effective. Rob Halford is still going for and getting the high notes. He is not holding back. He is screeching his face off, my friends, and that is great to hear. The final thing to tell you about Panic Attack is that it's 5 minutes and 26 seconds in length. Not quite Painkiller, but longer than Firepower. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that the song repeats either of those tracks that I mentioned. I'm just trying to give you a frame of reference. Panic Attack is a brilliant return for the band. It's every bit as great a return as the lead single from Firepower, Lightning Strike, was. I think it has the same kind of impact, possibly even more impact, because it's a real up-tempo metal bruiser. Right here on the screen is another video that you might want to carry on watching, but before you do that, you'll want to get into the video description downstairs, enter your email address, join my mailing list so that I can send you missives on metal matters. Thanks for watching, and for goodness sake, remember to stay possessed by metal.